Good morning, welcome to lesson 2, which is the Magnus Chase reading, which is going to be interesting. Please make sure you give me feedback about this, whether you enjoyed it and it's helpful and you'd like to continue it next week, and as well as the dictation. I just had a look at Ed Studio just to make sure that we had completed everything, and I noticed that there was the reading task for Friday, so I thought we might very quickly start with that. So if you could please head up your book, the same as what we did this morning. And I'll just make my screen a little bit bigger. Just to say week 1, Friday. We get a nice rest over the weekend. Friday the 24th of April, 2020, and we're just going to finish off that Friday reading task. And don't forget, if you want to, you can do your epic reading. Lots of people are going in there and reading the books. Just keep a journal so that I can give you stars. Okay, so Friday's language task, it says these facts contain, so these facts in this text up here about Sydney Harbour Bridge, contain facts and statistics about Sydney Harbour Bridge. You need to, oops, I'm on the wrong one. These facts contain both simple present tense and simple past tense. So you've got to make a table, read through the text, and put at least 5 examples in of simple past tense and simple present tense. Okay, so first of all, we need to revise what this means. Now, I've got a little video here which I'm going to play. I'm sorry, it's a bit young. I went through about 20 videos, but they just went on and on and on, and it's not that complex an idea, and I just wanted to show you very quickly what they are. So it's a little squirrel who's got a bit of an accent, so sorry about that, but I'll play just a bit for you that will help you do this activity.
Simple tenses: present, past, and future. The word tense indicates the time of an action or an event. For example, the moon shines brightly. In this sentence, the verb shines indicates an action in the present. Yesterday, she visited the doctor. In this sentence, the verb visited indicates an action in the past. Tomorrow, she will pray at the church. In this sentence, the verb will pray indicates an action in the future. Verbs in simple present tense indicate habits and general truths. In this case, the verb simply ends with S or ES.
So that's present tense, S
For
or ES.
example, the sun rises in the east. Verbs in simple past tense indicate actions that happened in the past. In this case, the verb simply ends with ed. For example, the day ended. Verbs in simple future tense.
Okay, so that's all we need to worry about there. Sorry about that, I know that was terrible. So all you really need to do is just, you only need to find 5 verbs. So 5 verbs of each. So just make a little box up and halve it like that. And then just on one, and remember they're verbs that you're doing. So we're doing simple, present verbs. And underneath that, you can even put, so that you remember, ends in S and ES. That's the kind of words you're looking for, verbs that end in S and ES. And this is simple past, verbs or tense, and they end in ED. Now, any verbs like yesterday I ran, that's an irregular verb, okay, and that's different. So we're looking for simple past verbs that end in ED. So all you need to do is read through your facts and put 5 in each column, okay, nice and simple. So if we go back up to the text, I made this big so we could see it. And we just read through it. The Sydney Harbour Bridge is located. There you go. There's our first simple past one. So we put located over here. is located in Sydney, Australia. It connects. Connects is our first simple present with an S. How easy is that? Okay, so you just need another 4 if you want to do that, or put more in if you want. So that's your reading activity for today. Okay, now we can get on with, that's everything done off Ed Studio for the week now. We've totally caught up. So now what we can do is go on with our Magnus Chase reading. And before we do that, I sent you through the guided reading booklet that we were doing in class. And there's 4 questions, which we'll just go over now. So as we're reading it, you can keep an eye out for the answers. And it is, what is Magnus for the first time since his mum died? So obviously that's a mistake that they've put in the booklet. So what is Magnus for the first time since his mum died? So probably what is Magnus feeling for the first time since his mum died? 2, why does Magnus flip his sofa over? 3, what's Magnus's Valkyrie look like and what is she wearing? And this is for chapter 11. And what does Magnus have to learn about Valhalla? The words we're looking out for are asthma, atrium, vandalize, and in English, that's an American spelling, the Z, it's S-E, vandalize, and bold, which is a Norse word, bold. So we'll see if we can work out what that is. Okay, chapter 11. Pleased to meet you, I will now crush your windpipe. I collapsed on the grass, gazing up through the tree branches at the blue sky. I had trouble breathing. I hadn't had an asthma attack in years, but I remembered all the nights my mum had held me while I wheezed, feeling like an invisible belt was tightening around my chest. Maybe you're wondering why my mum would take me camping and climbing mountains if I had asthma, but being outside always helped. Lying in the middle of the atrium, I breathed in the fresh air and hoped my lungs would settle down. Unfortunately, I was pretty sure this wasn't an asthma attack. This was a complete nervous breakdown. What shook me wasn't just the fact that I was dead, struck in a bizarre Viking afterlife where people ordered pig heads from the room service menu and impaled each other in the lobby. The way my life had gone so far, I could accept that. Of course I'd end up in Valhalla on my 16th birthday, just my luck. What really hit me for the first time since my mum died, I was in a comfortable place, alone and safe, as far as I could tell at that moment. Shelters didn't count. Soup kitchens and rooftops and sleeping bags under bridges didn't count. I'd always slept with one eye open. I could never relax. Now I was free to think. And thinking wasn't a good thing. I'd never had the luxury of grieving properly for my mum. I'd never had the time to sit and feel sorry for myself. In a way, that had been as helpful to me as the survival skills my mum had taught me, how to navigate, how to camp, how to make a fire, all those trips to the parks, the mountains, the lakes. As long as her old beat-up Subaru was working, we'd spend every weekend out of town exploring the wilderness. What are we running from? I asked her one Friday, a few months before she died. I was annoyed. I wanted to crash at home for once. I didn't understand her frantic rush to pack and leave. She'd smiled, but she seemed more preoccupied than usual. We have to make the most of our time, Magnus. Had my mum been deliberately preparing me to survive on my own? Almost as if she'd known what would happen to her. But that wasn't possible. Then again, having a Norse god for a dad wasn't possible either. My breathing still rattled, but I got up and paced around my new room. In the photo on the mantel, 8-year-old Magnus grinned at me with his tangled hair and his missing teeth. That kid was so clueless, so unappreciative of what he had. I scanned the bookshelves, my favourite fantasy and horror authors from when I was younger, Stephen King, Darren Shan, Neil Shusterman, Michael Grant, Joe Hill, my favourite graphic novel series, Scott Pilgrim, Sandman, Watchmen, Saga, plus a lot of books. I'd been meaning to read at the library. Pro-homeless tip, public libraries are safe havens. They have bathrooms. They hardly ever kick out kids who are reading as long as you don't smell too bad or cause a scene. I pulled down the illustrated children's book of Norse myths my mum read to me when I was little. Inside were simplistic pictures of happy, smiling Viking gods, rainbows, flowers, and pretty girls with blonde hair, and sentences like, "The gods dwelt in a wonderful and beautiful realm." There was nothing about the black one, Cert, who burned baby carriages and threw molten asphalt, nothing about the wolves that murdered people's mothers and made apartments explode. That made me angry. On the coffee table was a leather-bound notebook titled Guest Services. I flipped through it. The room service menu went on for 10 pages. The TV channel list was almost as long, and the hotel map was convoluted, divided into so many subsections, convoluted meaning confusing and back to front. I couldn't make sense of it. There were no clearly marked emergency doors labelled exit here to return to your old life. I threw the guest service book into the fireplace. As it burned, a new copy appeared on the coffee table. Stupid magical hotel wouldn't even allow me to properly vandalise things. There's our word. Don't forget we have an S. In a rage, I flipped the sofa. I didn't expect it to go so far, but it cartwheeled across the room and smashed into the far wall. I stared at the trail of dislodged cushions, the upside-down sofa, the cracked plaster and leather skid marks on the wall. How had I done that? The sofa didn't magically right itself. It stayed where I'd thrown it. The anger drained out of me. I'd probably just made extra work for some poor staff member like Hunding. That didn't seem fair. I paced some more, thinking about the dark, fiery guy on the bridge and why he wanted the sword. I hoped Cert had died with me, more permanently than I had, but I wasn't optimistic. As long as Blitz and Hirth had got away safely. Oh yeah, Randolph too, I guess. And the sword itself, where was it? Back on the river bottom? Valhalla could resurrect me with a chocolate bar in my pocket, but not a sword in my hand? That was messed up. In the old stories, Valhalla was for heroes who died in battle. I remembered that much. I definitely didn't feel like a hero. I got my butt kicked and my guts cannonballed by stabbing Cert and toppling off the bridge. I'd simply failed in the most productive way possible. A brave death, not so much. I froze. An idea struck me with the force of a sledgehammer. My mum! If anyone had died bravely, she had, to protect me from... Just then, someone knocked on my door. It swung open and a girl stepped inside, the same girl who had circled over the battle on the bridge and pulled me through the grey void. She had ditched her helmet, chainmail and glowing spear. Her green headscarf was now around her neck, letting her long brown hair spill freely over her shoulders. Her white dress was embroidered with Viking runes around the collar and cuffs. Even her golden belt hung a set of old-fashioned keys and a single-bladed axe. She looked like the maid of honour at someone's Mortal Kombat wedding. She glanced at the overturned sofa. "Did the furniture offend you?" "You're real," I noted. She patted her arms. "Yes, it appears I am." "My mother," I said. "No," she said, "I'm not your mother." "I mean, is she here in Valhalla?" The girl's mouth formed a silent O. She gazed over my shoulder as if considering her answer. "I'm sorry, Natalie Chase is not among the chosen." "But she was the brave one. She sacrificed herself for me." "I believe you," the girl examined her keyring, "but I would know if she were here. We Valkyries are not allowed to choose everyone who dies bravely. There are many factors, many different afterlives." "Then where is she? I want to be there. I'm no hero." She surged towards me, pushing me against the wall as easily as I'd flipped the sofa. She pressed her forearm against my throat. "Don't say that," the girl hissed. "Do not say that, especially not tonight at dinner." Her breath smelled like a spearmint. Her eyes were somehow dark and bright at the same time. They reminded me of a fossil my mum used to have, a cross-section of a nautilus-like sea animal called an ammonite. It seemed to glow from within as if it had absorbed millions of years of memories while lying under the earth. The girl's eyes had that same sort of lustre. "You don't understand," I croaked. "I have to." She pushed harder against my windpipe. "What do you think I don't understand? Grieving for your mother? Being judged unfairly? Being somewhere you don't want to be? Forced to deal with people you'd rather not deal with?" I didn't know how to respond to that, especially since I couldn't breathe. She stepped away. As I choked and gagged, she paced the foyer, glaring at nothing in particular, her axe and keys swung on her belt. I rubbed my bruised neck. Stupid Magnus, I told myself. New place, learn the rules. I couldn't start whining and making demands. I had to set aside the question of my mother. If she was anywhere, I'd figure that out later. Right now, being in this hotel was no different than walking into an unfamiliar youth shelter, alley, encampment, or church-based soup kitchen. Every place had rules. I had to learn the power structure, the pecking order, the no-nos that would get me stabbed or rolled. I had to survive, even if I was already dead. Sorry, I said. My throat felt like I'd swallowed a live rodent with lots of claws. But why do you care if I'm a hero or not? She smacked her forehead. Wow, okay. Maybe because I brought you here. Maybe because my career is on the line. One more slip up and she caught herself. Never mind. When you've introduced, go along with what I say. Keep your mouth shut, nod your head, and try to look brave. Don't make me regret bringing you here. All right, but for the record, I didn't ask for your help. Odin's eye, you were dying. Your other options were Helheim or Ginnungagap, or she shuddered. They're the other levels of Valhalla. She shuddered. Let's just say there are worse places to spend your afterlife than Valhalla. I saw what you did on the bridge. Whether you recognize it or not, you acted bravely. You sacrificed yourself to save a lot of people. Her words sounded like a compliment. Her tone sounded like she was calling me an idiot. She marched over and poked me in the chest. You have potential, Magnus Chase. Don't prove me wrong, or... From the wall speakers, a horn blast sounded so loudly it rattled the picture on the mantel. What's that? I asked. An air raid? Dinner. The girl straightened. She took a deep breath and extended her hand. Let's start again. Hi, I'm Samara Al-Abbas. I blinked. Don't take this the wrong way, but that doesn't sound like a very Viking-ish name. She smiled tightly. You can call me Sam. Everyone does. I'll be your Valkyrie this evening. Pleased to meet you properly. She shook my hand, her grip so tight my finger bones popped. I will now escort you to dinner. She forced a smile. If you embarrass me, I'll be the first to kill you. Okay, and then chapter 12, if we want to go ahead with that next week. Now, I couldn't remember if we had actually read that chapter last term. It got very confusing, but I thought that was a good place to pick it up. So the question is, what was Magnus feeling for the first time after his mother died? So in the text, if we go back into it, what really hit me for the first time since my mum died, I was in a comfortable place, alone and safe. And so this allowed him to think, and he started really worrying about things because he was safe and comfortable in Valhalla. Why does Magnus flip the sofa over? Sorry. The reason why he flips it is because as he's thinking and overthinking, he becomes really enraged with the fact that his mother died and she was actually the brave one. Question 3, what Magnus's Valkyrie looks like and what is she wearing? Sorry. And it went into quite a lot of detail with that, and I think that's because she's the other main character. And a girl stepped inside. Her green headscarf was now around her neck, letting her long brown hair spill freely over her shoulders. Her white dress was embroidered with Viking runes around the collar and cuffs of her sleeve. From her golden belt hung a set of old-fashioned keys and a single-bladed axe. Okay, and Mortal Kombat's a game, so she looked like a character in one of those games. And question 4, what does Magnus have to learn about Valhalla? And he goes on to talk about how he has to learn the rules and the pecking order so he doesn't get himself into trouble. All right, now, just with these words, just very quickly what we'll do is if you want to, you can write down the answers to this one this week. It's not so important because we may be doing just a little bit of a review and a refresh to bring us up to date. But let's do the phonemes for each word and make sure we understand the definitions. So asthma, as we all know, is a breathing disorder where your lungs can constrict and small and you can't take a deep breath of air in, and that's triggered by cold and dust and smoke, and that's what I experienced during winter. So if we say asthma, asthma, sorry, asthma, asthma. So in it there are 4 phonemes and we don't actually pronounce the PH. We can do an etymology of that word if you want.
Asthma.
And that's how you write it in IPA. And it's a relatively modern word, as you would expect from Middle English, medieval, asthma, azen, breathe hard. And in the dictionary, it describes it as respiratory disorder characterized by paroxysms of laboured breathing. That means episodes. Okay, then our next word is atrium. And if we put that one in, and it means a small room in a big place, atrium.
Atrium.
Or atrium, I should say. There's your IPA. It's an old word from Latin, as you would expect. And the definition is an open-roofed entrance hall or central court in an ancient Roman house. So I was a bit mistaken there. Not a small room, but an entrance with an open roof, an atrium. Okay, and the next word is vandalize. Etymology of the word, and I'm going to spell it the English way. And it doesn't come up with our usual screen, but willful destroyer of what is beautiful or venerable, which means or protected. And the last word is a Norse word, so it's not going to be here, and it's vold. And vold is to do with forests. Vold. And in the wiki, under Norse words, it Old Norse word. And it's like a glen, a little valley in a forest, vold. Doesn't have it there though. Okay, so I think we've, and vold, the, o, u, de. I think we forgot to do the other phonemes, but if you want to go through and do those. And we've completed all those activities for that one, and we've done our reading one. So thanks guys, and I'll put the maths one on now. Thank you, bye.